So let's talk about ovals real quick, and we will let's start with that idea. And first thing, if I take a circle, there's a circle for you, and I take that circle and I foreshorten that circle, it becomes an oval. I'll show you what I mean. Hold on. Oh, I know what to do. I know what to use. Okay. Look at this here. This is the bottom of a coffee cup. All right, it's a circle. But when I turn it away from you and it becomes, and foreshorten, it becomes an oval. If we look at a coffee cup straight on, or any type of tire or anything that's a circle, and then I lower it, look at that. You could start to see the top of it. If I keep lowering it, what would happen is you would end up being right on top of it, and it would be a perfect circle. Same thing if I raise it above the eye line. Look, as it raises above the eye line, you could see more of it. As it gets closer to the eye line, it becomes more foreshortened. You see that? So that's the basis of understanding how a circle will work in just the universe that we exist as we watch it. So take a look at this right here. Let's see, is it coming on there? Okay, so there are two main parts to an oval when you're drawing it. So let's just start with our perfect circle here. There are two axes to a circle, okay? There's a minor axis and a major axis. And the minor axis is going to be the distance across the shortest distance across the circle or oval. The major axis goes across the length, the longest part, all right? So this here is our minor axis. This is our major axis. Now, if we draw an oval on the side, like something that's angled, well, it's true here too. That right there is going to be your minor axis, and this right here is going to be your major axis. Major axis, all right? Right there. So when we're drawing ovals, the key thing we want to remember, the most important thing is the minor axis, okay? I don't know of any scenario where I use the major axis. And if someone knows that, someday you'll have to let me know. So, minor axis. Here's the other thing with the minor axis. Let me get a new board here. When you're drawing an oval, if you drew a circle and divided a straight line down the center of it, we'll call this side A and side B. Those two sides are perfectly reflective of one another, all right? They mirror each other. So same thing goes with an oval. If you were to draw an oval here and you locate the minor axis, you want to make sure A and B are perfectly reflective, right? Meaning if I made a fold right here, if I folded right here along this line, those two sides would perfectly match up to one another, All right. This is what you want to remember. This is key. Same thing on a, if you were to draw an oval on the side like this, and you find the minor axis, you're going to want A to be perfectly reflective of B, so that if you folded that up, it would line up perfectly. All right. Just remember that. So even if you draw an oval like this over here, there's your minor axis. You want to make sure A is reflective of B. You know, if it is if it's super foreshortened, again, minor axis, you want to make sure A is reflective of B. So as you practice drawing your ovals, I want you to imagine, I don't want you to have to draw the minor axis all the time. I want you to use your head and put it, just estimate it in place and start to like draw your ovals with the idea that they are going to be reflective of each other right down the center. Okay? All right, let's bring our first object in and take a look at it. Hey, look at that, a can of beans. Okay, so if we are to look at this can of beans, this is going to be my oval. Up on top there, you see that? And then there is my minor axis, and A will be reflective of B. Let's try that. So I'm going to start here. And when I'm drawing my oval, I'm drawing from my elbow, okay? All right, there's a pretty good guess. That's not too bad. It's not perfect, but it's a good start. We're going to come in with 2 straights on either side here. And then you want to make sure you curve the bottom. Curve the bottom. Now let's look at these beans here. These beans are kind of have an oval shape. So I think we could put some in here. Let's put some ones up in front here, just like this maybe. And I'm just kind of randomly putting them in. And now we'll do another layer. And we're using overlap. Look at that, there's a nice, you could even go into some of this negative space, the small spaces here, and add some darker value to give now. One thing I do want to show you on this is, you know, these cans have these ribs. And I think they add the ribs for structural integrity, but we could use the ribs. So make sure when you draw these ribs that you are drawing them. You know, this is like, This is like the, these are all like half ovals. So make sure you get these really round. And I'm using my elbow to draw this. All right. Let's bring it in a new picture. Let's look at this one right there. Okay, look at this. Here's a plastic cup. Now we're dealing with multiple ovals, multiple ellipses. So this time I am going to use a straight line coming down the center, and this will work. I'm going to draw it lightly, and this will be a guide for my minor axis. And just to remind you where that's going to fall, you know, your minor axis is going to fall right down the center of this cup here. This to this, that's the shortest distance. That's the shortest distance of that right there, of that oval. And because all of these ovals line up, because they're all using the same minor axis, look at that. You're going to have one right there, and there's another one on the bottom down here. There's one right there. You see that? So all of these ovals are using the same minor axis. Let's try and draw this. So let's start with the top one there, and you might start off just with, okay, that's the width that I'm going to make it. And these are just kind of guides. All right, let's try and hit those four. Let's try and hit those 4 points. You know, when you are trying to hit these points, if you keep your eye of where you want the line to go and not where it's at, you will find that you can draw it a little bit smoother. Okay, let's come to the bottom here and draw the bottom part, and this is going to be a little bit wider. A little bit wider here. And let's draw this as well. You're trying to hit those points at the same time, trying to get that oval perfectly reflective. This takes practice like anything else. I'm locking my wrist and my fingers, and I'm drawing from my elbow here to get a nice straight line. That nice straight line. Okay, let's come down just about this distance here, just like that. And let's do the same thing from the point, the mark back here. So this is, it's gonna almost like the second mark is gonna be down there. You see that? So it's like this distance is the same as those two distances right there. You see that? If I take the halfway point between those two marks and just kind of go out here and go out there, and let's draw another oval here. All right, so now you can see how that next set of ribs are working. And put another one right below it. Put 3 in mine. They're not perfectly lined up, but this is a good exercise to practice these ovals. Really focus on that minor axis. Focus on that minor axis to get that to be very reflective. The minor axis is key. All right, let's bring in another photo. All right, here's a good one. Just this coffee can bird feeder. Coffee can bird feeder. So let's find out where the minor axis is here, and this is a little bit more tricky because, for one, it's on its side, it's at a slight angle, and it's going back in deep perspective. All right, so let's take a look at this here. So let's draw what we know first. All right, so just follow along. I'll go nice and slowly here. Let's use a nice bright green. All right, so what we know first, we know this edge. You see that? And we also know this edge. And look at those. Those are slightly fanning out. You see what I mean? They're slightly fanning out. So let's draw that first. So let's come down here. There's one side. And then a slightly fanning out. And there's the other side. Oh, I'm going to change it to be blue, I think, instead. All right. All right, so that's arbitrary. All right, that's going to be the beginning point. So we can we could look at our drawing next door here. We could look at this right here and go, okay, that's where my point is going to be. Let's draw a straight vertical from that, straight down like that. And where this vertical hits that line, okay, great. Now we've got the longer distance right there. Okay. Ooh, this is harder than I thought. As I'm working through this with my mind, this one may not have been a good one to throw at you right away, and you're gonna find out why in just a minute. Okay, but let's just work through this step by step, nice and slowly, and I'll explain why in just a minute. Okay. All right. So this is where that comes to the back of the contact of the can there. Oh, exciting! I thought, oh, this is a good one to throw your way. Well, we'll slowly build up to this, and now I'm realizing that it's a little bit more than I thought. You'll see why in just a minute. All right, so there's my back there. All right, same thing. Let's go ahead and drop a straight, coming back here like this, straight down. Okay. All right, straight down over here on our drawing. In a sense, what we've done is sort of slice this thing in half, but just bear with me as we work through this, okay? And just so you know, this line right here, this is not the major axis, okay? This is strictly to get this thing in perspective. And you'll see why. All right, let's find the center point here. All right, so to locate the center point here, I'm just going to divide it in half. I'm just going to look for my halfway point right down the center of that line. And the same thing back here. I could just use my guesstimate and determine the halfway point right there. You see that? And then I'm going to want to connect those up. So let's do that on our drawing now. There's a halfway point. There's a halfway point. So what we've just done is we've determined this little mark right there is ultimately the center, and let's change the color here so I can show you. We've just determined the center of our ovals, okay? That's all we were looking for. We were trying to look for the outside pieces and the center, okay? So with all that work, this is what we've accomplished. Now, what this also can show us, let me put this in here. This is also, by connecting these two lines here, okay? Let's change this to yellow so you can see it. This right here could say that is the axle, or that is we've connected the center points of our two circles, okay? So why the axle, or why the center points of two circles are so important is because those become that becomes the minor axis. I know it's confusing, but just bear with me on a minute. We're going to repeat this a couple times here in order to get it to sink in. All right, so let me show you how this is going to be our minor, this is going to be our axle, but this is why the minor axis is so important. So watch this over here. Watch what happens. When I draw my oval, then this side, because it's a minor axis, is reflective of down here. You see that? So in a sense, what I've done here is I've drawn an oval just like this. So we could do that now in our drawing. We can say, okay, I'm going to come out there, and I'm going to come out there. And I'm only concerned with trying to get this reflective along that line right there. That's all I want to do. Now I'm going to come back. Same thing here. I'm only trying to get this to be reflective. I'm not even looking at the can drawing here. Trying to get those two reflective, just like that. A is reflective of B. A is reflective of B. Now we've drawn this bird feeder correctly. Finding the center of something and then getting it to go across and using that as your minor axis, that's key. Let's bring in, hang in there. Let's do this again, but use a different picture, okay? Let's bring in this one here. Let's see. Maybe I might change my mind here. I'm just looking at something. All right, we'll use this guy here. So here we have a box on top of a cylinder. Essentially, that's what we have here. So let's do this. I'm going to show this to you. If I just bring that down, the opacity of that. And then let's do this. I want to show this to you here. I'm going to spin it around so you could see it like this. This might be a little bit easier. Now watch this. Okay, this is where my cylinder is. Just like that can of beans that we started off with. That right there is going to be our minor axis. You see that? It's all it is. And just like this, A is reflective of B. And this center line is also the axle of the wheel. Okay? The axle of the wheel. Let's bring in this other picture here. And then we'll come back and draw these. Let's look at this guy here. All right. And where is he? He's there. Let's bring him. Let's get rid of that. Let's spin him around as well. And increase the size here. So you can see the same thing happening. There is the top of our cylinder. There's our center line. See? Just like another can. Just like another can of beans. All right, let's draw this one now. Let's get rid of these guys here. We'll bring them back in here. Let's start with this guy. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and start with this axle first, okay? That's a good place to begin with. It's always a good place to begin with. So, there's one point. There's the other point, you see that? And that's my angle. That's my angle I'm going to go for here. Okay, so that's not too bad. In fact, I'm gonna just, oops. All right, here we go. And just so you know, in order to get that line nice and straight, I've tilted my drawing pad slightly, and you could spin your drawing pad. Feel comfortable to spin your drawing pad, because when I draw, I go left to right, and if this is a very straight line I can make just like this. So if I spin my drawing pad a little bit, I can get a nice straight line at the right angle. All right. So this here, let's just say that this is going to be our axle. Let's draw an oval. Let's draw this first wheel here. But all I'm going to do right now is look at my axle, which is also my minor axis. That's not too bad. All right, this is going to go back, and this is going to go back. Look, there's the little distance between these two wheels, so that's what I'm looking at there. And there's about the center of the other wheel. Okay, great. Okay. There are my two wheels, and I can see mine are slightly you know, more foreshortened in the picture, but that's okay. Now spokes, here's where it gets confusing. Spokes are on a different plane than the minor axis. And let me show you how that is. Let's just say I had a square here, like this, okay? And you divided the square up like this, and like this, and like that. You see let's just pretend like this was a square wheel, and all the spokes are on that plane, okay? That has nothing to do with the axle that connects the other square wheel. You see that? So we can then, this spoke is going to go back to a vanishing point. Same thing with this guy. These are going to go all to the same vanishing point. You're going to have a vertical one. And now you just have to divide this in half and you got it. Now here's the tricky part that might add confusion if you're not already confused, because you know that's what I do. I live to confuse you. I'm so sorry. But this next spoke just happens to line up exactly with that minor axis, even though they're completely different. So this is where it can get a little confusing sometimes, okay? When you have a spoke that is lining up exactly with the minor axis. Okay, let's go ahead now and get this this wood crate in, okay? So I'm going to come in here with, this is the corner. That's the corner I just drew, okay? And this is going to go back. That's going to go back to the same vanishing point where this spoke is going back to. This is going to go back. I'll give you a minute here. I'm sorry, I'm rushing. This is going to go back to that same vanishing point, fanning out, and we can just, I'm just guessing the back end of that box right there. All right, let's get the front end here. This is going to be a very narrow box. So that's going to a vanishing point. That's going to go to the same one, slightly fanning out. It's also the same, it's the same one where these go to as well. And our axle. Okay, that's going to go back to that vanishing point back here. And this guy, I know, you're like, slow down. So there, bam. Let's stop at that. Once you get your head around this concept, this idea, and it's gonna take some repetition here to really get this down. Once you have these mechanics deep in your head, then when you start drawing these mechanical things that are ovals or cylinders, you'll just like it will just start to really fall into place. But key is that you take the time to repeat, to repeat, to repeat, to get this down. It's like this is the core. These three, drawing the cube, drawing the sphere, and drawing the cylinder, that's really your core masses. If you get those down, then you're going to be in business. Here's the inside back corner of that box. And you can add some tone here if you wanted to, the front end. Add a little tone to help see that box there. If you happen to have questions regarding any of this, feel free to put them in the comments and I will take a look at them. Or there's a link in the description where you can join our Facebook group and you could pose your questions in there as well. Okay? All right, let's bring up one more. Let's take this down just a notch because that was pretty heavy. Let's come back to something a little bit more fundamental, okay? Here we have 3 candles. We'll end on these 3 candles here. Maybe. Maybe. Let's try and get these 3 candles in. So the wicks will represent really the center point of these things. So there's one there. Let's draw this other guy maybe over here. And then we'll get the last one way up here on top. All right, so this center line where the wicks are, this also is going to be your minor axis. So let's start with this guy over here. Let's get him down. Okay, so A is reflective of B. There's our first candle there. Maybe we do another one up here. And this is also, A is reflective of B. And then the last guy up on top, let's foreshorten him just a little bit because he's higher up in the plane getting closer to our eye line. So let's just that will work right there, I think. Let me try to get a sharper line there. Okay, a little sharper line. Okay, I'm going to get the sides coming down like this. Now the bottom part, I want to make it less foreshortened, so it's a little bit more fat because it's further down below my my eye line. So watch this. You see, this distance is a little bit more than that distance. Same thing with this next guy here. Let's bring these sides down a little bit. Now he's kind of behind there, right? You see that? All right, let's get this bottom oval again. Let's make it a little bit wider. Then the top, A and B, they're reflective. Plus, it's a little bit, that distance is a little bit wider than that distance. And then we can move on to the one in the far back here. A is reflective of B. This I'm going to erase this inside part here so we can draw the wicks coming in. Now let's draw these things a little bit further down. So I'm going to have a bit of a curve, you see, right there. Same thing up here. I'm going to slight curve here. And this you can actually kind of draw through if you wanted to. You see that? You could draw a whole nother oval if you wanted to, even though it's not really visible, but it is because the glass. So let me show you where that is at, just so you could see. You know, here's see? What's going to happen here is you're all going to go away from this, come back an hour later, and you're going to have an aha moment. If it doesn't quite register yet, it's going to happen. I guarantee it. Let's get this guy back here as well. You're going to be thinking about this today, and then you're going to come back and like see it completely different than what you see it right now. So it'll happen. I guarantee it. Let's add a little flame here. I'm just doing a slight S curve and then a C curve. You know, it's a great way to draw a flame. Look, S curve and then a C curve. And you could do that the opposite as well. See? Slight S curve and then a C curve. you might end up walking away from this lesson thinking like, oh my gosh, that was awful. but I just taught you how to draw fire. that was an added bonus, right? S curve, C curve, and then you could even add another little flame there, maybe, right? Here's an extra bonus. You didn't think you were going to learn how to draw flame or fire, huh? All it is S curves and C curves. If you wanted to add a label to these, okay, so you could add a label, just curve it around like this, and then curve it around. And this also, you could also get this label exactly accurate by finishing the oval by going around. You see that? If you really wanted to get that curve exactly right. Or you could just guesstimate it based upon all the other curves that you've drawn here. So I can come down here. There's some tone on the label so it stands out. We'll put this one right in the dead center here. Here, this is your pumpkin spice candle. This one down here is your winter pine, and this over here is your vanilla bean candle. Okay. All right. So today we looked at we took a look at ovals, cylinders, and wheels. We took a look at using the minor axis and reflecting on the minor axis to make sure our ovals are constructed properly. We've looked at the axle of two wheels, and that is the same as a minor axis, okay? And you can go back and take a look at those. So listen, I hope that was helpful. Once again, if you do have additional questions, please join our Facebook group. It's totally for free. Post your questions in there. You could direct it toward me, or even down here in the comments below, you could ask a question and I will try and answer it my best. But my name's Kurt. I'm a dad who draws. This is our third lesson in Back to Basics. Our next lesson will be, we're going to be looking at the wedge, a wedge, okay? All right. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye-bye.